thanks. Start off with gratitude. Let me make a couple of co-hosts, or let me make a co-host real quick. How you doing, Miss Willette?
Good
Let me
morning.
know.
Good morning.
All right, good. You can hear me. All right,
Yes.
cool. All right. So, yeah, this is another mindset, and when I'm remote, I'm actually, it's actually good practice. One of the things that, in the mastermind, it is that, we want to have the freedom to, move around, trade from anywhere. And part of that discipline is having a routine. And one of the things is, making sure that you're able to do it when you're mobile, basically controlling your time. So let me make sure I can share my screen right now. I got my mobile desktop set up. Share. So, one of the things that I do, I say when we wake up, the mindset in the mastermind is I wake up winning. And, part of that is being able to, implement, the routine, whether I'm at home or remote, it is a lifestyle. And so the mindset that I have this morning, it is, you know, understanding that there's information and then there's knowledge. It's what you know. And you develop the knowing part. A lot of people, they ask me about, man, where's the videos? Where can I watch? And a big part of trading is gaining the experience. And so I like to say, hearing is not knowing. There's a difference between being a veteran and being a beginner, because you can have two people read the exact same sentence and get totally two different, perceptions and two different answers from the same sentence and the same content, but they have different experience. And so, the philosophy that education cannot be taught; it only can be learned. And this is a big part of trading that, you know, people, and traders and mastermind members, they observe over a period of time, right? The things they hear in month one is not the same as in month six. And so, I like to say that we inside the mastermind, we get it and apply. I tell guys that, when you start small, but it's about going through the process. And one of the most important parts of trading is the protected capital, right? Master one setup, and never blame the market, right, for things that happen, right? The market is going to be the market, and as we get more experience, and as we gain more wisdom, and we gain more knowledge, we understand that we have, probabilities and opportunities. And so, as I go through this, um, you know, knowing is not just learning and reading. Knowing is in the reps. It's in the losses. It's in the honesty. So, honest assessments of, you know, when I'm gaining, when I'm attracting, that's all a part of the growth. And so, the most expensive gap in trading is to, um, you know, um, not do, right? And so, what you know before you know, all right? Information, can be downloaded. A book, a course, right? You can actually put a YouTube in a notebook, right? But knowing and having a feeling, intuition, right? It cannot be downloaded. I can't share my, intuitive instincts, right? You can't share your instincts and intuitivity with others, right? That's installed through repetition. That's installed through a period of time. And so, under pressure, with real consequences on the line, right? You start to develop, this intuition from your experience and from the knowledge and from repetition and doing it before. And so, mentorship is about shortening your time frame. but they can't walk it for you, right? And so, one of the things that I did on Monday is that I was sharing guys the mobile setup. Just what how I set up my laptop and how I set up my phone. So when I'm away, right, I have a mobile setup, and then I have to apply it, right? And so, at Monday call, we're share, hey, here's what I'm using, etc. Right? That is giving people the information, but the knowledge that you gain and basically applying it, it's almost like you have to, go remote and try it out and see how you like it. And so, these are the lessons that sit dormant in your head until you have to apply it, right? And your experience activates them. And so, after reps, right, taking reps is important, right? That's part of your training is the reps. Part of your training is going through, an entire year and experiencing the different weeks within that month, experience the different months within that year. And so, right, eventually, after you do enough reps, you see the change. You become the change, right? And that's when the gap closes. And so I always also, I hear people ask me like, how long is it going to take, right? How long is it going to take for me to understand? And it's almost, almost a response is how many reps are you going to put in, right? How much, um, how much practice, right? How many times are you going to wash the car? How many times are you going to, actually trade, right? So trading remote and then also, trading, from home, it's two different experiences. So, you can't wait until you fully understand. That is a big part of doing in trading. It's a big part of doing in life. You can't wait till you fully understand and have everything in perfect conditions before you start, right? Because you will never think your way to the knowing, right? You earn it going forward, right? By collecting the reps, on purpose for long enough that the words finally become instinct. And so that's a big part. That's a big statement, right? You will never think your way to know it. You can't just think about it, and you have to earn it. You have to earn it going forward. And so the market is a mirror, right? Um, the beginners they think they fight in the charts, indicators, algorithms, are the market makers. And the reality is that they're really not fighting any of that, right? The market is not the opponent; it is a mirror. It is actually showing you, how much you prepared. It's showing you, um, where you at. And so whatever you bring to the screen reflects back at you, right? If you um, bring inexperience, right, it's going to show you inexperience, right? If you bring preparation, it's going to show you that you prepared, right? And that's part of the battle map. That's part of the uh, swing master. It's part of actually applying it. It's part of applying the lessons that you've watched the video or downloaded information, and then setting the levels and actually taking action on them. Right? If you're greedy, the market will find your greed. Right? The market will present greed in front of you. And if you oversize and chasing trades and chasing fast money, the market will show you that you're chasing fast money. If you're going to the market hopeful, right? The, the market will show you that hope doesn't work. Right? If you're impatient, right, it will put you in trades that were never there. If you were insecure, it will make you hesitate on the exact setup you waited all morning. So if you cannot govern your emotions, right, the tape will expose that faster and more publicly than any other arena in your life. So the market is actually a mirror of, the internal thoughts. And, the secret that survivors all learn eventually is trading is a game of self-control, right? Wearing the costume, right? Putting on a show. Right? You're not trying to master the markets. You're trying to master the market. the person staring back at you, right? And so the impatience, the lack of discipline, right? If you're showing any of that, market will mirror that. And even on this call, the preparation, I came here with, um, you know, um, anticipating that the internet was going to work, and I realized that, you know, waking up early and retesting, it was a totally different internet, and so on hotspot, right? Some people, I've had traders, they got telling us, oh, my internet wasn't working. And they called me on the phone and told me that the internet wasn't working. Well, it's like, well, how you call me? It's like, well, on my phone. And your phone has the hotspot, right? So you always have internet. But it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. And those are the times of being resourceful, right? And so life, it requires you to be resourceful. And that is also another mirror, is that you can make anything happen, right, that you want. Um, and sometimes life just tests it tests you, right? It reflects back to you what's happening, right? And so I had a couple of different alternatives. I was gonna go live directly on Zoom. I was gonna relocate, right? And you know, it was no way that I'm not having the call, right? And that is a mindset and the mastermind is that it will happen, right? And so the mirror test is, who do you blame? Right? I could blame that, hey, the internet didn't work, or this hotel got terrible internet, etc. Um, or I can say I was unprepared, right? Uh, I failed to have a plan. And so most people blame everything except themselves when it comes to life, right? And when it comes to trading, the broker, the algos, the news, the economy, right? It gives you a lot of ways out, right? The market maker who hunts stops, there's always something out there. But the honest ledger reads differently, right? The market does not force you to risk too much. The market does not force you to take a trade. It does not reach over and delete your stop loss. It does not make you revenge trade after a red morning. All those are within your control, and they're all become choices, right? And so, how I look at making calls, or participating in the mastermind, or even with the internet, I can see a slowdown, or I can say, hey, I'm emotional, and I'm feeling uncertainty because of XYZ. But that is also a mirror, right? And that is, trading is one of the few arenas where accountability matters more than talent, right? Being accountable. And I this mindset call really is about accountability, right? Taking accountability for our decisions, our planning, um, our resourcefulness, right? And also knowing that the world and the market is not against you, right? The people who improve faster is not the smartest in the room. They're the ones that are most willing to look in the mirror without flinching, right? And until you own the mistakes, you cannot fix the pattern. So the blamer stays stuck for years. The owner compounds, and this is a big part of reviewing the trade journal and making changes, right? A big part of looking at your mistakes and saying that, hey, I can fix those, right? There's resources out there for me to fix every mistake and every obstacle that I'm blaming on someone else, right? And so having a discussion, right, with family members, having a discussion with traders, a lot of times, they'll tell me what happened, right? Or when you try to make them accountable, right? They'll say, oh, well, my family, they, XYZ, or this scenario happened, right? And the blamer stays stuck for years. But when you own, all accountability and say, hey, you know what? I could have made something different happen. I could have had a hot spot. I could have, um, I could have been resourcefulness, and this feedback is helping me, right? The feedback is helping me make adjustments where I'm taking ownership, right? I don't want to blame and stay stuck, right? Sometimes we say the market was just random today. right? Memory writes the loss to protect the ego, right? Looks outward for the cause, news brokers, manipulation, bad luck. They repeat the same mistakes because they never named it as his, right? And quits and call and says trading isn't me, right? Everybody on this call, trading is for you, right? Because when we pull the journal and we ask, what do? When we look in the mirror, right, every single time, and we say we breaking a rule and it becomes fixable, right? It separates bad outcomes from bad decisions, right? And we can compound that skill. So the ownership is a big part of life, right? And as you get further into trading and as you get older, right, it's a big thing is taking accountability. Um, and you start holding all these lessons, right? And it's not the IQ, it's not a secret indicator, it's not a gift, right? It's that, you know, you stayed and got the lessons and you start repeating the same process long enough to where it finally clicked and you start seeing the patterns, right? And so while everyone else around you quit or restarts or quit again and then blame someone else for the obstacles, right? The number one reason why traders become consistent is or they become inconsistent is they never stay with one thing long enough to develop real skill. They confuse motion with progress, right? Watching charts all day, taking random trades, right? That's motion, but it's not progress. Taking new indicators is not progress, right? The progress comes in, taking accountability over the mistakes and making improvement, right? Activity is not a skill. Every time you abandon a strategy after a few losses, you reset your learning curve. And this is, something that, when guys are creating algorithms, right? I tell them every change you make, you have to actually restart the QA. You actually restart your testing, right? And so every new thing that you add, you have to restart your testing, right? Whereas, if you build on what you already have and you make the adjustments and eliminate those mistakes, right? Your percentage goes up and you start making changes internally, and then you start mastering less, right? Because now you've already gotten those lessons, right? And so the market does not pay you to be a jack of all trades. It pays you to recognize one high probability setup over and over until hesitation disappears. And this is, something that I go over on my momentum calls. I say, hey, within the first 30, 45 minutes, you need to be able to recognize, is today my day, right? Is it my setup, right? And that is over a period of time, right? I understand, my strategy. I understand what exactly I'm doing. And then you have deeper trust in what you're doing because when it doesn't, feel right, the instincts kick in. It's not the same. And so the difficulty in the beginning is not to prove you're failing, it's to prove the skills being built. So all the challenges that you have and you face, is proof that you're actually improving, that you're building a skill, right? And the business is not the casino, right? The markets is not a slot machine, right? If you think that the market is like a casino, you can just, pull a slot and get lucky, right? It's going to treat you like a customer at a casino. And eventually, right, you'll give all the money back. And, you know, um, when you stop trading like a gambler and start operating like a business owner, right? And there's rules that carry the transformation, right? And one of the first rules, is protect your inventory as a business owner, right? A grocery store owner buys stocks knowing some will spoil. He does not have a breakdown over one carton of milk going bad. It's a business expense. Same way that, we are in the market and we understand that, you know, there's going to be some milk that spoils that we have to throw out, right? And, the capital is inventory, right? We're not losing trades. Losing trades are like spoilage, at a grocery store. you will have to throw out 5%. Right? The goal is never to avoid every loss. If you have a store owner, the goal is to sell products and make a profit, but you also gonna have to get rid of some of the spoiled milk, right? And you have to throw some things out, right? And there's a difference between the owner from the employee, right? I'm the owner, so I set the rules, right? I said that, hey, you know what? I don't feel like trading today. I do feel like trading. I can open the store, I can close the store, right? Right. I have a standard operating procedure, right? And if you're not feeling good, you can fire yourself for the day, right? You can close the laptop and walk away, right? Because you are owning and you are accountable. And you can say, hey, I don't feel like going to work. So, um, you know, audit, right? Don't diary, right? You can audit yourself, audit inventory every morning, you can audit inventory every week, right? And so, part of me actually being out, it's like if I see or I'm having internet issues, or I'm having, you know, any type of issues, I can choose to minimize the trading. I can choose to pause, right? And that is, protection, right? It is a business decision, right? A risk management decision, right? And so, a winning trade where you broker process is not a good trade, right? A winning trade that you know, make and you feel uneasy or you got lucky, right? That is not a good trade because you don't build your your business on luck, right? You build it on a process. So there's a few laws of survival, right, that we go in life or we go into the markets with, right? And one of those is protection first, profit second, right? Your first job is not making money; it is staying in the game long enough to become profitable, right? Real trading is not about being right all the time. It's about controlling what happens when you're wrong, right? So even the best lose um, constantly. They just keep the losses small enough that one bad never erases a good year. And so that's another thing about these small losses, right? And every trade gets a exit defined before it's entered. Stops are non-negotiable. All right, and so never average a down, never average down on a loser, right? Because you can wait until it recovers, right? And adding size to the trade already going against you does not lower your average; it raises your risk, right? Unless that was part of your plan, right? If you got a 6 week or 6 weeks, 6 week option, right? And you plan it to average down and hold it for 3 or 4 weeks, right? And it's in the money or something like that, it's just based on, adding to winners or adding to a recovery process based on the plan that you had at the beginning, right? The market doesn't have any memory. It doesn't care what happened to you 5 minutes ago. Second trade is over, win or lose. Let's go and meet the next setup with a calm mind, meaning that it doesn't know that you just lost the last trade or it dipped down, right? We only know that the next trade is a new trade, right? And the new trade has to, you know, has to have new conditions, right? And so, forcing something drains you. Confirmation comes to you, right? So when a trade is confirmed, it actually comes to you, right? When you are forcing trades and trying to make it happen, right? And trying to, um, find a trade. So sometimes you'll see me guys and I'll be looking for trades and I'll go through my screeners and I'll be like, man, I'm looking too hard, right? Like that is the opposite of what normally happens. What normally happens is I run my screener, I run my process and trades jump out at me, right? When I started looking for trades and I'm actually not just going through my process anymore, I'm actually searching, right? That's actually it actually shows me that I'm forcing, right? And they say that emotional trade begins before you ever click buy. The instant you feel rushed, behind, or afraid of missing out, that is the emotional trade, right? So protect your emotions like you protect your balance. All right, so that's a big statement, right? The instant you feel rushed, behind, or afraid of missing out, you're in an emotional state, right? At that point, you're trying to force the trade, right? Because confirmation just comes to you, right? If you hear people say that, oh man, I heard a voice, right? They're not forcing a voice, they're not sitting there, hey, talk to me, hey, tell me something, voice, right? Um, normally they just have a voice that comes and be like, hey, yeah, you need to calm down, or hey, here, yeah, that trade right there is good, right? And it comes out, and so you know, knowing the gap declarations, right? I'm paying for knowing in reps, and I will not stop collecting them, right? Um, you know, these are reps and statements to give you confirmation that you gain the knowledge by going through and collecting knowledge over a period of time, right? The market is a mirror. I master the person in the glass before I try to master the tapes, right? And so if I can master and control what I see or how I respond, right? I don't have to worry about mastering the market and mastering the tape because the confirmation and downloads and what you see will be a lot easier, right? When it goes wrong, the first place I look at the mirror, never the news, never the broker, right? And right, I mean the news, the broker, right, the tool, right. I have to adapt and I have to be prepared because it gives me uncertainty every day, right? You know what? And so I will master less so I can finally trust what I know. Mastery beats variety. So the more you master and not add on more, right? The more you're gonna trust that hey, you know what? I know this. So I know I see one trade that I see, and I know what it looks like. So as long as I can see that, right, I know that that trade is good, and that's why you'll have traders that somebody focuses on futures, or they focus on crypto, or they focus on options, right? You know, you can master one thing at a time and say, I know that you can add more, right? But you have to have mastery at some point, and so you earn the knowing. When someone says they know something, or they've done something, or they trader and they kind of know what they know, right? Nobody can handle the knowing. They have to go through it, right? We can hand you an index card, we can hand you a trading document, we can hand you your YouTube video, but the world becomes real, right? The moment you live through them and the moment that you execute it. And that's what you gain by going through repetition, right? And so um, you know, you have to stay honest, stay consistent, and stay in the seat long enough where the lessons stop being words and stop, and then it becomes who you are. And so that is, the mastermind. That's the lifestyle. So when we say we trade, etc., right? Everybody here is a trader, right? You can hear that now that I am a trader. And then it comes like, well, I do trading things, and I gain experience by doing them. And that is the knowing part, right? Knowing that hey, I'm going through the right steps. I'm in there. I'm right at the right time in the right place. I'm getting the right lessons at the right time, right? Because and at that point, you become better, and the market recognizes you, right? And you recognize that man, any market, I can actually surf. I can actually ride the ups and downs of the market because I make good decisions. All right. So on that note, man, I'll see you guys um, inside the chats. I'm actually going to trade less because I know that I don't have the optimal setup, and so I'll be focusing on the trades that I've already kind of pinpoint. And I'm gonna go through my morning process, and then I'm gonna hop on my Zoom call, and I want to share where I see the market at, and also protect capital because I know I'm not going to be 100% focused throughout the day. So that's knowing yourself and your schedule. All right. On that note, Appreciate everybody. And man, I'm so blessed to be able to hop on this call and go through it. We get to trade, we get to have these calls, and we get to participate in the market. And that is, that's another mindset is what do we get to do, right? You get to trade every day, you get to live, you get to wake up, and that is a blessing in itself. On that note, hey, I'll talk to you guys on the inside. All right, appreciate you guys. Peace out.